see. Wait till we get the little eye. Not yet. And still not there. There we go. You all ready?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Here we go. Welcome to Creative Makers Podcast with your host, Joey with Steelblade Woodworks, Matt with Wacky Works Workshop, Jen with Jen's Turns, Jamie with JP Woodwork, and Jake with Northside Custom Crafts. Well, welcome, everyone. This is episode 10 of Creative Makers Podcast. How's everybody doing today?
a 10.
Pretty good.
Okay.
We're at 10. We made it
10.
to 10. Tonight, we bring y'all Mr. Tony Rouleau. I still messed it up, didn't I? I still messed it up. Rouleau.
There you go.
There you go. Third time's a charm. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, we usually start off the show with just asking the guest, give us your background, how you came into making these beautiful tools you make.
Well, I had an interest in woodworking since I've been about 11 or 12. And then my career is in machining as a machinist. And about 7 or 8 years ago, I was able to combine the two. I started making branding irons for woodworkers. Jamie has one of mine, and Jake does as well. And it kind of steamrolled from there.
Cool.
Nice.
For everybody at home, I'm Jake, and my first question to you is, a lot of people ask me how I met Jamie. I want to know how you met Jamie.
It was through the groups. I think it was through I Like to Make Stuff, and Jamie was doing all his crazy Photoshops and everything. And I enjoyed his sense of humor, and I'm a little off too, and so I think that's what drew us together.
Yeah. Kindred spirits.
Yeah.
Probably some stories you can't talk about.
Yeah.
Keeping it PG.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. So, hi, everybody. I'm Jen with Jen's Turn. And I guess the big question out there is, it seems like you do limited run of your tools. Is that because are you the only one working on them, or do you have a team that helps?
Yes, it's just me in my basement. So that's the past 7 years or so. I've done it as an after. It's like a side hustle to my day job. And Jamie had reached out because he knows that actually it's this Friday is my last day at my day job, and I will be full time, which I'm hoping to. I think I'm still going to do the batch of tools, but it'll be much more frequent, and it may be slightly larger to kind of combat demand, hopefully. If I still have demand. I have my apprehensions, but that's just nervousness. So
I think that's understandable. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Sure. And sorry, I just want to mention everybody that's in the chat. If you have any questions, just put question out there, and we will put them up on the screen and let you ask questions to Tony as well.
There you go.
Hey, everybody. I'm Matt with Wacky Works. My question is, what kind of software do you use, or do you use software? Are you old school?
I
use
do.
pen and pencil, or?
In order, I have a mix of manual machines and CNCs. It's a hot subject with the whole CNC versus handmade stuff, but I've tried to show as much as I can on my Instagram that the CNC will only get you so far. It'll cut out the basic shape, but all the fit and finish, that's all done by hand. You have to take the time to get to that next level, because you can produce something that's acceptable off a machine like that, but when you go that extra mile, that's what really does it. So a lot of it is designed in my head. I'll just sit driving to work, or just watching TV, or just spacing out in the middle of the day. I'll think of ideas and just keep refining them. And then I do have like CAM software that I use to program the parts for the CNC, but like whole assemblies and everything, that's all pretty much in my head. So
Okay.
Cool.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jamie from JP Woodwork. How you doing, Tony?
hey, baby.
So my question is, did you always grow up wanting to be a machinist and make tools, or did you have your sights set on doing something else, like being a model, for example?
It's kind of, I've mentioned it in other like interviews. I always wanted to do something with my hands, and I grew up in I graduated in the mid 90s where college was really shoved down your throat and a tradesman wasn't a thing. So they pushed me towards the college route when I wanted to learn through the trades route. And I went to community college for 3 hours for mechanical engineering. And I went to my father. My father has worked at a local hardware supplier for 50 years, almost 50 years. And I just told him, I'm like, it's just isn't what I want to do. And, thankfully he was understanding. And he said, well, why don't we explore your options? So I had always liked the idea of machining. In high school, thankfully our school, and it still does, the school in the area that I'm in upstate New York, about an hour north of Albany, New York. People know where that is, but they have a strong technical program. So we still had shop, and they still have shop, and that's one of the nice things about this area. But I messed around with a metal lathe a little bit, and it's something that I wanted to do, but it wasn't. I didn't really know the whole scope of things, and then I started looking at local trade schools, and I found the machining program. And so I decided to join that. And then I had found out I had like 5 or 6 uncles and great uncles, all on my father's side, that were all machinists. Some were retired,
cool.
some were. I knew that where they kind of worked, but I didn't know truly what they did. And that was something that was really interesting, that I gravitated to that, and that heritage was there. It was just interesting. So
Cool.
It is pretty neat.
Yeah. So I didn't get a chance to introduce myself, but I'm Joey with Steel Blade Woodworks. And
Hello, Joey.
I always kind of forget to do that at the beginning. It's just like, boom, hit the button and we're going, My question to you, I've walked into some machine shops, and, of course, you see all these different machining tools, equipment and stuff. So could you, give us, or the people listening, kind of a layout of the types of machinery that you use there in your shop to produce these tools you make?
Yep. This behind me is like my cellar is a walk-in cellar, because a lot of these, like, that is like 2,500 pounds. They're not. There's guys that will get those in their cellar, but thankfully I have just doors that open up out into my driveway. So, but I have a manual. What's in terms, it's called a Bridgeport or a knee mill. That's just a standard milling machine that you'll see in any basic shop. And then to this guy is my CNC. This is basically a computerized version of that. And then I have my CNC lathe, which I think you can see that guy right there. That is my, that's just a regular manual lathe.
Right.
And the computerized. So like if I'm doing knobs for squares or something where I need to make like 100 knobs, that is so suited. Like a perfect example is like on a normal run of squares where I make around 100 a year, it would be 2 weeks, 10 to 12 days of evenings making them manually. And then once I got that, it was 8 hours to make 100 knobs.
Oh, wow.
Because once the program's there, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things that it's like, yeah, I can make it. This is where I get a little I get a little pushy with CNC where people kind of poo-poo it. It's like if I make that manually, you have to pay more for something that, there's a trade-off.
Right.
It's just a
Yeah.
standard knob, but an example is like this is the cap iron that holds the blade in one of my block planes, where this knob is all fitted, the wood's fitted, it's all hand finished. That's where I'd rather spend my time.
Right.
While that thing is just cranking out just a simple knurled knob, and that's where it really shows itself. So.
Yeah. Sometimes automation's got to come in. It's going to,
yes,
in return, it's going to help the consumer as far as cost, help you, because the amount of stuff you got to make. Yeah.
Yep. And then behind me, you really can't see. I'm mirrored, so it's weird. There's what's called a surface grinder, and that just makes things extremely flat and very shiny. There's just no other way to play. So, but it just puts a nice finish. I'll use that to finish the sides of squares to make them perfectly parallel, because you have to think you have a parallel blade, and if your body isn't parallel, it may be square on one side, but if you flip it, then you'll see the error. So that's where that machine shines. And then in front of me is just a traditional wood shop. I have a wood lathe, a nice Laguna, and then I have a table saw, a couple band saws, and chop saw. Nothing crazy.
So just to go on a little bit more. Sorry, Jake. I'm just.
You just run over me, dude.
Okay, I'll do it. So, back in our drag racing days, when we used to do it, I know Jake did it too, but we had to end up bringing it in my old shop. We brought a Bridgeport in. So I'm just curious, being in a residential place, as far as power consumption and stuff, like our Bridgeport was 3-phase,
Yes.
And so
I'm out in the country. Like my house is in the middle of a cow pasture. So, and that's a country kid that just walked by. So it's, thankfully the CNCs run on like 220 single phase, but yes, the manual lathe, the surface grinder, and the Bridgeport are all 3-phase, but the Bridgeport and the surface grinder run off of VFD, a variable frequency drive. That's a real down and dirty, easy way to get 3-phase.
Correct.
You sacrifice a touch of horsepower, excuse me, where that's like a 3 horsepower motor. It's now 2 horsepower, but the work I do, I don't see a drop in horsepower. And then, my manual lathe, I have a rotary phase converter for that, and that helps. So.
Nice.
Cool.
I'm going to run over Jake too and do some questions from the chat. Richard Bennett would like to know, what do you enjoy making the best?
New stuff. I mean, that's kind of a bum of a question. I like that's one of the most exciting things to me is I have a bunch of ideas in my head, and I'm limited to anywhere from 2 hours to sometimes an hour, because I have a family, so I've tried to not be, totally, I try to, it's hard to split my time between a day job, this, and my family. So a lot of times when I'm making things down here, it's previous tools, it's planes, it's squares, stuff that people want to buy because I've reinvested it back into my business. But the maker in me, like, every once in a while gets a fit and wants to make something new, and that's where my prototypes generally come along. So I like the prototypes the most. As far as the existing tools, probably the hand plane. That was the first tool that I made, and there's a lot of character that goes into that, and I've made small refinements over the years, and I have ideas for future refinements. So that has pretty much, like, the squares I make, they haven't, I mean, they've changed a little bit, but the planes, I feel that I can keep making improvements, and that's what I like doing the best.
Nice. And then one more, Paul Desmond would like to know, what is your favorite part of the process when making the planes or squares?
With planes, it's it's after the see if I have one right here, actually, is after I can hold it up. The planes are actually dovetailed. This is
Nice.
You can see it comes apart. So what I'll do is everything's fit together. And then what I'll do is I'll take a hammer and I'll carefully just mushroom these ever so slightly, just enough to lock them into place. It's after that they get machined flush, and it's when everything is ground smooth. That's when that's when it starts to turn into a plane. It's all these components go together and it becomes theoretically a functioning plane. Like this one has the front infill, but even before that, it still can function. It's when that comes together that's my favorite part of planes. And
beautiful.
Squares are when the inlays get finished. That's when their true character comes out. You can see, someone, and that's one of the fun things about squares is a lot of people have sent me their own wood, and that makes it that much more special to me. Sometimes they have stories behind them. Sometimes they just have wood that they like,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jake.
Go ahead.
Jake. Go, Jake, go.
Yes.
We'll wait for the.
Well, I want to go first. I'm going to go first now. Go ahead.
You mentioned doing runs of these tools and stuff, and how is somebody like me and Joey going to know when your next one is, and how do we order, and how's that whole process work?
Social media is the easiest way to stay up on stuff. I also I have, this is something I have to do. I have to diversify a little more because I have relied on social media, but I do have on my website there's a mailing list where I'll send out a couple, hey, heads up, I'm going to be making just this past week I sold spots for bevel. So what I'll do with squares, squares are an easy one. I'll say I'm making squares. I'm going to have a pre-sale July 5th at 9 p.m. And then, so what I'll do is I'll say, go to the website. When the website is up, you'll have a button you push. You put down $50. That basically helps me cover materials. And that money that you put down as a deposit goes towards the total price of your square, so you're not paying extra. Right. It's just it's a way to save things. So what I've done, because all the tools I make are so custom, I don't want people to have to make decisions in the checkout, because sometimes things sell out in an hour and sometimes they sell out in minutes depending on the demand. So I just want you to get in there, get your spot, and then in a day or 2 or 3, I'll email you, and then we start working through the process together.
Gotcha. Hey, somebody, cool. Sorry, Jen, I'm going to steal your job for a second. Bill Sweet says, can we get a link to the website? It should be in the description of his social media and website.
Just Google Hillview tool, and that'll usually pop up. So
there you go. There you go.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at the description. Make sure it's in there.
Yep, it'll be in the show notes as well as once we upload it into the podcaster. So there you go.
So there are a few more questions from the chat. So Bruce says, did your current boss pass out when you gave him the news?
My supervisor did. The owner of the company did not. It was kind of funny. Not literally passed out, but when I started this, my boss, I work for a small machine shop, so there's only 11 of us, and we have the owner who is our boss, and then we technically have a supervisor. So when I started making tools, he wanted to buy them to support me. So And he immediately said to me after the first batch of planes, he's like, I can see you eventually at least going part-time here, so he kind of knew it was coming. I also told them in January that I was leaving in July because they have done a lot for me. I was allowed to use the equipment after hours. That's how I started making these parts. And that's pretty unheard of in machine shops. Usually the machines are off limits and that's it. But they encourage us to use them to learn. And this is where I've, developed and I got the Bridgeport first, and then I started building, and last year was the first year that I've done everything in-house where I didn't have to rely on, it used to be I was there every weekend working on something, and then it was like a couple times a month, and then it was once a year I'd need a specialized piece of equipment, and now everything I can do in-house. So they were good. They're supportive. Like I said, my supervisor was kind of, I think I'm kind of his right-hand man. So there's going to be a bit of a hole left there, but I've kind of pushed them to hire, like, thankfully a guy came on in last September, and I was able to kind of push them. Hey, why don't you teach him the machines that I run? And I'm trying to make things as seamless as possible rather than just go, here's my 2 weeks and I'm done. So
yeah, sure, they appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cam would like to know, who's your favorite YouTube machinist? Joe Pye, This Old Tony, Clickspring, Blonde Hacks.
I like Blondie Hacks. I like Chris at Clickspring because he's so fussy and weird and out there. You're asking me, so I'm drawing a blank, and I'm looking at Robin Renzetti. He's like this like weird Zen master that just knows everything about super precision, like nerd machining. Where Chris at Clickspring does like this beautiful stuff that's amazing, that's really nice, but Robin will do this stuff that's like it'll be like this air bearing where something rides and it runs out like 1/10 millionth of an inch, and it's just pure precision. So I don't watch a ton of machining videos because I've done it for so long. Sometimes it gets a little repetitive and boring. Like This Old Tony, I like his humor, but I won't watch a lot of his stuff. But like I said, Clickspring and Robin Renzetti.
Nice.
Cool.
And then Gerald would like to know, have you considered making a #1 hand plane similar to the Stanley #1 for those that want to complete their plane collection?
That's funny because in the past few months, I've had different people like JP knows him, Dan Harju. He's been in the Facebook groups for a long time. Amazing. He makes reproduction beds, like antique beds and stuff that are just amazing. He's like a pure craftsman.
He just got in there too.
He's always bugged me to make a smoothing hand plane. And there's a lot of boutique hand plane makers out there, so it's something I've never wanted to dip my toe in, but I've noticed over the past few months that there is a vacuum for that little tiny #1, and I like the more intricate stuff, so that has piqued my interest, and I don't know if I will, but if I do, it'll probably be a #1 or a #2 smoother, something along those lines. I don't know if it'll be a copy, because the patents are all run out, so I'm not going to hurt anybody's feelings if I copy a #1 Stanley, because Lee Nielsen has done it and all the other big manufacturers. But there is a demand, and the resale for the old ones is like stupid money. So maybe someday.
Yeah.
And one more. Jim Spalding says in his chip carving, he uses squares and center finders in his layout work and pattern development. Do you fab center finders?
No, right now I just make what's called a double square. That's basically like it's gotten bigger in woodworking through woodpeckers, and I believe myself, and there's other people, but you just think of it as like I don't have one next to me, or I'd show you, but think of it as a combination square. Instead of having the 45, it's just straight, so it's like a T. And I would like to make more of those, like an actual combination square and possibly a center finder in that aspect. But again, it's one of those things that with my limited time, I've only been able to, until I get that wild hair and I have to produce, the prototype in my head. So, this is the thing is Saturday morning when I wake up unemployed, is I have all these ideas in my head that I get to start to get out.
You're not unemployed.
No, I know.
The work is about to begin.
It's a heck of a transition. Just to wrap your brain around working for yourself. It is. You'll be happy. You'll be happy.
I've always worked for someone ever since I was a teenager. So this is all new. But
looking at that plane, I mean, it's the contrast to the materials right there was amazing. What's the different type of materials that you like to work with?
Mainly brass. A lot of I like with squares, I offer brass, or I offer a plain steel that I can do what's called a heat blue. If you're familiar with Click Spring, you would know that he'll take like screws and stuff and turn them blue with heat, like a bright blue. And then I also offer a black oxide, and then I do stainless steel. With the planes, it's basically brass sides with a tool steel sole. It's not hardened, but it's tougher steel. It'll never. I mean, you could plane till the end of your days every day, and it'll never wear out. But I used 01 tool steel on the bottom, brass on the sides. I just made an all bronze hand plane. Similar to that. That was a special request, and that was interesting because I did the same construction, but you don't want to see the dovetails because everything's the same. So that was kind of a different challenge to make sure everything stayed hidden. Because any little
imperfect,
it shows up like a, it shows up off.
Yeah,
that was an interesting thing. So.
Yeah. How much does it? What's the best way I put it? The nice way. How much does it bug you that when people buy your stuff, they kind of look at it as a master art piece and then just display it on the shelf as opposed to use it?
I got over that kind of quick because there are people that just collect tools to put on the shelves, and then there are people that use them every day. And I've told this to friends and stuff. One of the coolest pictures I've ever seen was a few years ago. It was more than a few. It was over 5. But there was a maker. There was like a woodworking maker meetup it was somewhere out in Oklahoma, and it was just guys just set up a bunch of tents and a bunch of woodworking benches. And Jay Bates was there, and Jay had one of my first planes, and it was a picture of that plane sitting on a bench. And the whole plane was just green patina, except for where someone had held it, where your thumb and your fingers go, and it was just polished brass. And that was, to me, one of the coolest things, because I can take any one of those and just spend 10, 15 minutes with Scotch-Brite and clean it up and make it look pretty again. It was just neat to see that thing was being put through its paces and people were using it. Jimmy DeResta, he made a whole goddamn boat with that little thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's heavy. It just followed through nice. That's one thing I do not make is light tools. When you grab one of my tools, they're always super heavy, and they're designed that way. They're not what I would consider like a job site tool. They're more for like a shop. I do offer, like the stainless and the steel squares are good for job shop or job site, but it's more, the brass and everything is more for a dedicated shop. But he liked the weight and it just worked for him. And like I said, he piled through dry glue and wood and it worked great. and he just had to keep it sharp every once in a while, and he loved it, or else he would have took like 2 things to appease me, and then would have went on to a different plane, So it's neat to see the tools in use. But I'm also a businessman, and this kind of sounds, I don't know the right term without breaking your swearing laws, but if someone wants to buy a tool and put it on the shelf, have at it.
Yeah.
That's one thing. It's funny because people are like, I'll make something, they'll be like, oh, that had to have been hard to let go. And with being a machinist, I make cool parts all day, and they just go out the door into the ether. And sometimes they get put on fighter planes, or sometimes they get put on a porta potty, or sometimes they just get blown up. They're just for destructive testing. So I've learned to just kind of separate myself from that. So when that tool leaves or I'm done with it, it's theirs, and I don't have that attachment. It's more the process for me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Joe, you want to go, or you want me to do some questions?
Go ahead and do your questions so you don't get behind there, because there's a few of them in there.
Okay, there's a few, yeah. So Gib would like to know, what's the next new tool?
Well, he took my question. I should have went.
I need a protractor as a prototype, and it's based on like the sheet metal protractors you get at the hardware store, where it's just the square piece or rectangular piece of sheet metal with a bar. Well, I made a much more nicer one because I really like that protractor, but it's hard to use. I like the idea of it, so I kind of put my spin on it and made it. And I think that's going to be the next production. After I just took orders for bevels, I think I'm going to do protractors next. As far as the next prototype, I think I'm going to make a fixed blade square. That's something I've wanted to make for a long time.
Ooh.
Is just a regular tri-square, but with a Damascus blade and a wood infill in my style. And I that's something I want to add to my my tools. So
Nice.
Cool.
And then Suman says he's asking for a friend.
yeah,
When are you making a smoothing plane and a jack plane?
he bugged me. He bugged me about a week ago about that. Again, like I said, there's a lot of boutique plane makers out there, so I don't know if I'm at that point yet to sit down, because just to do the prototype is going to be a long dedication. And that's the thing is we're normally like, I'll do like 25 planes or 100 squares. That's all relatively the same time frame I've figured out over the years. I don't know if that's going to be like 5 smoothing planes. That's something I kind of have to just slowly put my toe in the water and really, work on it on the side. It may be something too that I want to make by hand. There are plane makers like Bruce Neville. He's out of the UK and he makes beautiful hand planes, and he does them all with a hacksaw and a fret saw, and he cuts all his dovetails and pins them together, and it's painstaking, but he does nice work. So it might be one of those things where I get away from, the CNC, where we're like a perfect example. If the CNC is running squares or something, I can try making hand planes, but that's a ways off. I could see the small number one smoother, or a version of that coming before like a jack plane or a full-blown smoother.
Okay. And then Mark would like to know, in the multiple material planes, do you have any issues with different thermal expansion amounts between the materials?
They don't, obviously they don't see a lot of temperature. The main thing that I've found is the infill, the wood. I talked to JP and Joey and Jake about this in the pre-show. Well, we did like a little meet and greet or whatever, and pretty much all the woods that go into all my tools, I resin stabilize because of the wood movement. Because right now I'm in a basement in July in upstate New York, and it's not like Texas hot, but it's muggy as hell. And I'm running a dehumidifier, but wood likes to swell. So in the winter, you would have issues with a perfectly fit inlay. So I try to resin impregnate, use cactus juice to vacuum stabilize as much as I can. There's only like 2 or maybe 3 woods. Desert ironwood out of Arizona won't really take resin, and like African blackwood, which is a super dense rosewood, won't take the resin. Other than that, obviously spalted maple, walnut, cherry burl, cherry, mahogany, all those. It's just become a commonplace now that that helps battle the expansion. It's not, I wouldn't classify it as thermal expansion, but that is an issue I see in the metals or in the tools.
The tools. So last one for now. Tim Webster would like to know, what did it feel like the first time you saw one of your tools engraved by J. Bauer Engraving?
That Jen Bauer, if anybody's on Instagram, I believe she's on Facebook too, but she's pretty heavy on Instagram. She's a lovely woman out of Michigan. We've kind of formed I send a lot of stuff to her now, because it started Izzy. I made a plane for Izzy, and he sent it up to her and had her engrave the whole thing, and she went ham on the thing. So that was really cool. It was neat to see something that I made like taken up a notch. And then I had people, now it's I'll do like a batch of squares, maybe like anywhere from like 4 to 8 will be sent to her, whether it's the inlay. I've had the whole square. I've left one side blank where I won't put an inlay, and she'll go over it. And it's a neat partnership that we've built together, and it's fun. It's just neat to give her a canvas to do that. And it also, it's another thing where it kind of suppresses the machine made thing just a little bit more. The CNC thing, I should say.
Yeah.
So my question, and maybe you answered this, but I'm still going to ask it. But on the blades of your square, all the inch marks and everything, are those machined in and inlaid, or how is that process done?
Those are purchased. That was one thing that I knew right out of the gate. There's just some things companies, they're just a large company. There's certain machines that are designed to do that. So I started with buying blades from a company that's the biggest machine tool measuring company in the world, and their quality was bad. I won't say their name, but their quality was bad. It was hard to get the blades. It was frustrating because I would get a blade and then I would have to put it on my grinder and grind it parallel. And I was paying double of what I pay now for a blade that I had to finesse.
Yeah.
It was like every other blade. It was pretty bad. So I had a person reach out to me on Instagram about it's Mike Taylor from Tay Tools. I don't know if you guys know of him. Taylor Tools. They're out of Missouri, I think. He started helping me get blades from a company called PEC. PEC are out of California. PEC basically make all the blades for Brown and Sharp. They make them for themselves, Minatoya. Basically, all the other companies they make the blades for, they're made in California, they're made in the USA, they're half the price. They're a hell of a lot more accurate. The only thing is the other company I feel has just a slightly better satin finish on theirs, but it's just not worth the headache to do it. So I buy all the blades now direct through PEC out of California. Because like I said, there's so many different. I sell metric, I sell combination, all different sizes, imperial. It's too much to undertake, you know. And I think if you had maybe like a fiber laser or something that had that speed, you could probably do something, but you just can't compete with a really nice ruler, blade, scale, whatever you want to call it.
Cool.
You mentioned Jay Bates earlier, and
Yes.
that video that he did was how I became aware of you and your tools, and I'm
A
sure
lot of people
a lot of other people. So the question is,
a lot of people.
how
That's
busy?
what kind of.
How busy
Go
did
ahead.
you get? How when it went from before and after? Just describe the day before that video and the day after.
Well, I've told the story before. It was funny. So I made like a batch of like 17 or 18 planes, and a lot of them were guys in the maker groups or people I knew, or a couple local people that I knew. And so Jay came up to me. It was the last woodworking in America. It was in Covington, Kentucky. And Jay had a few beers, and he came up to me and he said, I want to buy a plane. And I'm like, he's just inebriated. He doesn't want to buy a plane from me. But he really liked the one-off that I made. He saw it and really liked it. So he apparently wasn't as inebriated as I thought. So I make the plane, I box it up, tracking, I send it out, and I notice he gets it on a Saturday. Because these things are worth a fair amount of money. I was nervous that everybody was going to get theirs safe. So I was watching his, and he gets it on Saturday. So I'm not going to hound him. Did you open it? Did you open it? Did you open it? And so I waited. Saturday goes by. Sunday goes by, and I'm like, oh, God, he hates it. I'm worthless. I can't make a plane. I just need to, go back to whittling or something. I don't know. I was just like, oh. So then it was like Monday morning, I messaged him, and I'm like, hey, did you get your plane, by the way? And he's like, yes, I did. I'm going to do an unboxing video. And I was like, oh. So I messaged my buddy Joel Crawford, and I said to Joel, I'm like, Jay's doing an unboxing video. I was like floored. And he's like, you need to open an Etsy store now. And I'm like, I don't know anything about that. And he's like, how many planes do you want to make? And I think I offered 3 runs of like 15 or 20 planes each. That's what I was going to do, because that was the only tool that I'd made. I was kind of done with branding irons for the most part. So Joel was setting this up for me. So Jay said, hey, if you have any links, let me know. And I said, oh, I'm doing an Etsy store. So I sent it to him. He goes, the video's coming out at 6:00. So I watched the video at 6:00 like everybody else. And I'm tickled because he was very, very kind. He really liked it. It was just it made my day. And then Joel messaged me like 5 or 10 minutes later, and he's like, you're sold out. And I'm like, oh, the first batch sold out. He's like, no, you sold all 3. And then all of a sudden the emails started coming in. And I'm just like, and it was just that kind of launched me, and I owe a lot to Jay. He did a lot for me, and just with him taking the kindness to do that, it helped. A lot of YouTube guys have helped me a long way. JP, he's used his branding iron. The stuff is squares. Paul Jackman has done a lot. He'll have his square in a video every once in a while, and every once in a while I'll see someone, where'd you get that square? And that's how I've built a lot of the demand, is people seeing it in other people's hands, and thankfully it's all because they like that. I don't think they're doing me lip service because it really doesn't benefit them. I think it's because they truly enjoy using the tool, and that's what drives me.
I don't think I've ever seen Jay do a plug like that. Like, he was genuinely happy, excited.
It floored me that he was, and he's just been. I mean, he's kind of peeled away a little bit from social media. Every once in a while he'll message me just to see how I'm doing or something, but still the fact that he reaches out and and that was huge, and that kind of started to steamroll. And people to this day still email me and say, I saw Jay Bates' video. How do I get a plane?
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing, because I get people that, you get certain people that poo-poo social media, and I'm like, I've basically built a whole business through social media. As
Yeah.
long as you use it for what it's for and not just,
Right.
Twerking.
your paper flag you have, it's quite powerful, and you meet a lot of amazing people.
Jamie
Like
likes
the
twerking.
lovely
Twerking on
Vivacious
his.
Jamie Page.
Yeah.
I remember a few years ago when I met Jamie, it didn't take him very long to bring out those things that you got him. And he was like, check this out.
I've got him up there.
He likes
He's
advertising it.
He goes to get him. He's like a peacock going to get him. He's like,
Yeah.
And I also think too, I think too, allowing people to choose what they want, because I started to get overwhelmed, and Joel, the same guy that helped me, he's like, well, why don't you just make 20 walnut squares and 20 maple squares? And I was like, I could do that, but then it just kind of, I might as well be back in the machine shop making parts, because that's the one thing I like is a perfect example. I had a gentleman that sent me a chunk of his flooring out of his late parents' house that was mahogany, and he had it inlaid in squares. So that way he has that part of his family's, heritage in there. And those are the things that really fuel me, and I enjoy working with people like that, or making something for like Jen Bowers to engrave. Like I had a guy that he bought 2 squares, and he was going to give one to each daughter. He had like 10-year-old daughters that loved woodworking, so he had Jen engrave each of them custom to each girl, and that type of stuff is just, it's powerful to me, and it's part of the reason why I do it.
That's cool.
Yeah. With having the limited runs that you do because of your time constraints, which we'll be lifting a little bit now, do you get, I don't know what the right word is, do you get harassed by people going, come on, man, step it up, I really want one of these?
The one thing I've found too is thankfully, oh my God, some of these guys, it's amazing the patience that they've had. Like this batch of planes has been over a year, because my wife Mackenzie, she went to school last year for massage therapy, so she was gone a lot of nights too. So I was doing a little more, Mr. Mom stuff, and I was trying to, so it slowed things down a bit. But all in all, most people are good. The only time they're getting better a lot of times is the sales. When if a sale goes quick, then I'll get some nasty grams or something. But I sell out fairly quick, but it's not. It's one of those things, like squares took like an hour to sell out. I don't want to be a butthead, but set an alarm, and if you're on the website at noon or whenever, but it's like I try not, these are adults, but it's like if you set an alarm and you'd been at the website, you had an hour. If it go, I've had some, like the first time I did bevel squares, the angle, they went in like 3 minutes because I was only making like 25 of them. They went like brutally quick. And I had people, and it's one of those things that I don't want to cut my own throat and stick my neck out too far and make too many tools, and it either be, it's too much and it takes forever, or it caught the material. Brass is very expensive. A lot of the materials I use is expensive, so I only have so much. I have an idea of what I want to make, but I've found as the years have gone on, I get less grumbling. Like I had like a dozen people message me, I was in, hey, are there any left? I was in a meeting, I was out of cell service. I've had, I shouldn't say this in a public forum, but if you have some ridiculous, like if you're going to be at a funeral, or I don't know but if you have something that's really keeping you away from the sale, if you message me and you're nice to me, you'll probably, I'll try to be accomadating. Put it
You
that
just made a little crack a big.
I know.
Hey,
Really?
people.
But that's the thing
it's tough.
Or unless Jamie bats his baby blues at me, and I'm like, "What do you want?"
A picture goes a long way,
I got kind of green, so if I bat them, can I get one?
There you go. Hey, I don't discriminate.
Hey, Jamie's baby blues got me a Brendan iron.
That's true. You were like one of the last ones. I'm like, I don't want to do any more branding irons.
That thing's beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh, man.
So you do a lot of metalworking. Is there any other medium that you use that you don't incorporate with you just do that as primary?
The problem is I haven't had a lot of time. Like I really, and this is not blowing smoke at Jamie, but I do enjoy wood turning because it's the total opposite of those. Because everything is so freeform, but I just haven't had a lot of time. And also, oh God, Jamie, I'm just kissing your butt tonight.
Scroll saw.
It disconnected again.
No. We'll be all right.
Technical difficulties.
Don't put me up here. No.
Come on, give us a little dance. Give us a little dance.
Hey.
Here he is. He's back.
He's back. He's back.
It kicked me out because I was kissing Jamie's butt.
Yeah,
That's what happened.
I used to do a lot of scroll saw work when I was a kid. I did a lot of scroll saw work in Tarsia, stuff like Scroll Saw Scribbler does, but nowhere near like his level. But that's what I like to do too. So I won't talk about Jamie anymore. So I don't.
Oh, he's a peacock. he's a peacock already.
He has that effect even on Saturday morning cartoons. He's forbidden to sing because you can literally see the people drop out.
We'll have to put an R rating on the show. So you mentioned obviously Jay Bates had a big hand in getting you where you are today. So go a little bit further back, and I know that Mark Schaefermeyer had a little small hand in getting you where you are today as well. So could you please explain how that came about?
Yep. So I was on a podcast. It was like the first podcast I ever did. It was called MakerCast. John Berard did it, and it was a really good interview. He did some mainstream people, but he did some more working class people like myself and a few others. And he messaged me that he was doing like a giveaway in the summertime, and he had interviewed like Jimmy and Mark Spagnolo, the Wood Whisperer, and a couple other guys. One guy was giving away a 3D printer, and Jimmy had a bunch of his swag he was giving away. And he asked me if I wanted to make something or give something away. And I'm like, I don't, signed 8x10, I guess. I don't know. But so I'd always wanted to make a plane. So that's where the block plane started. And it was cool because the guy who won the raffle was Mark Schaefermeyer, who was a friend of the group's. And he ended up bringing it to Making 100 in Boston when they had their 100 episode celebration in Boston, which was a really good time. He brought it to there. So there was other, makers and stuff. And that was another, way that more people saw my stuff, and it did help a lot,
There you go.
Cool. So, being now that you're going full time, is there plans? Of course, maybe trying to upscale and do a little more. Are you planning on maybe bringing in an employee, or are you just going to keep it yourself for now? What are your plans?
I have teenagers. That like to do that, like money, and like they'll help me. Like one of the things I have is I have a laser cutter, just a simple CO2 laser, China laser, and I do a lot of my packaging that way. So machinists are very solo, autonomous people. So I don't know if I can give up the reins to have somebody else make something with my name on it yet. I don't know if I ever want to go there. Yeah. I guess it would have to make sense either I would have to find someone that really has the passion to do it, that's young, that's maybe local, which that's got to be a needle in a haystack type thing. But that I would entertain that. I would entertain, and I don't know if I would really, if it would be something that I would want them making my tools, or it's something that I would want them making something on their own. You know, I don't know. I don't know if employees are in my future. I don't, because my cousin Paul, who goes by Cousin Paul in the maker community, Paul Granger, he that was one of the first things he asked me. He's like, "Are you going to get like 10 employees and then sell the company and make a bunch of money?" And I'm like, "No, I mean that's ridiculous to think." But I'm like, "No, I just want to be the old guy that makes tools in his basement when he's 80." And
there you go.
One thing I've tried to do too is in Mackenzie, my wife is helping me with it. There's certain small businesses around that either don't have the funds or the machine shop's not there for them to get repairs. So I want to kind of do a little bit of job shopping. So I kind of want to get my name out more locally that way, just for repairs and stuff. Because it'd be neat to be the 80-year-old guy in his basement and someone knocks on my door and they either have a broken farm implement or they need a little widget made and I make it and send them on their way. And that would be fulfilling as well as the tool making.
That was pretty cool because back in the day when, again, I'm going to bring it up, when we did drag racing, we had a guy, he was a farmer up close to San Antonio, but you could drive out in the middle of nowhere, right? And you see this rundown old farm building and stuff. You pull up and you go in there and you have this full blown, you wouldn't even think, this full blown machine shop in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty wild to drive up to that place and walk in there and see all these tools. And you wouldn't think that this guy, he never even mentioned that he did that. But I mean, we had some pretty intricate parts that he's like, "Oh, you need that?" And there we go. He's chunking up a chunk of metal. And this dude's going at it. Like he's just making this deal. And it's like, you know, he drag raced and built motors, but we did not know that side of him. And also when farming stuff, you know, parts on tractors and stuff, he did them himself. You know, he could do them. It was pretty cool. You know,
that's another thing too, is I've had a couple people in the maker community that have approached me, you know, about doing stuff. And obviously because I'm so busy, I had to turn them down, but I kind of want to eventually offer the same service to people in the community. If you have an idea for a tool, it's no different what I do every day at work. We have people that come in and they have an idea and we help them make that come to life. And we can also say, hey, if you change this feature, the price of the part or the tool or whatever goes to half, you know. And I would like to help people. I made a small like rotisserie for Pat Lapp that attaches to his lathe so he can turn his spindle even slower than what his speed control can do. And I want to do those. I think I want to focus on that too. It's just the one thing that I really need to, that will be the eye opener this summer, is time management, is knowing I have an idea how long it takes to make a tool, but it's 2 hours here, 3 hours there over the course of 6 months. What happens when I have anywhere from 8 to sometimes 14 hours in a day to just work? I don't know how long that's going to take. It's obviously going to get faster, but I don't want to not sell tools to make a widget for a company nearby for less money. That's a lot of like nerdy business stuff that I have to, that's my roadblocks that I see that are going to be the things that I have to focus on. But I do want to do that. Like I said, I want to help people in the maker community, you know, whether it's something like super simple, you can't get a part for an old machine, or you have an idea and I can make you the prototype, help you with some ideas for machining, and then you have 100,000 made in a shop, or you have 1 million or 10 or 50, whatever, you know.
Cool.
There we go. Super quick speed round. Super quick.
Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say we met we were able to meet in Maker Central in England.
Yes.
And anytime I'm asked about you, I'm like, what comes to mind with you and your wife is, I would just say, super nice. That's what and
she's amazing.
Well, yeah, what she made up for, what you know what I mean. So anyway, I just want to thank you for that, making me feel welcome in your circle and everything. You're super comfortable to be around, and you are a nice guy. And
I didn't hold the fact that you used JP against you, so.
That's always the trick. That's the first hurdle to get over.
I want to thank you, Tony. Also, it's been very interesting getting to know more about you.
Thank you.
There is a question in the chat from Daniel. Are you going to get some R&R before you start your life sentence in the basement?
No, I thought about that, and it's like, no, I don't want to, because I love this so much, and it's going to turn into a job at some point. I realize that, but no, Saturday morning, probably Friday evening, I'll be in the shop, and then Saturday morning I'll get up and keep working at it, so I like being in my hole down here. So it's I don't see it as needing time off. So
good.
Tony, I appreciate being on the show. I think it was a great show. I just want to say I can't wait for you to get some tools on there, because I'm going to be ordering some.
Well, thank you very much.
So, I really want to get a couple of your planes. So yeah.
Nice, thank you.
Obviously, thanks for joining us, Tony. I was going to apologise for basically assaulting you every time I see you, but I'm not going to, because I enjoy it too
very
much.
Welcome, my friend. I don't mind. I'm secure in what I'm fine. I don't mind a man hug every now and then.
There we go.
5 minutes. I don't care.
There we go. So thank you for coming on today. It's been a total pleasure.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah, that's it from me.
Well, Tony, I want to thank you, and I knew this show was going to go quick, which it went super quick. We could probably go another hour asking questions, because it's so interesting in what you do, but we'll definitely have you back on, if you agree, down the road.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to see how you're doing. And, thank you again for coming in. Thanks everybody out there in the chat. And you want to say some last words before we wrap this up and get on out of here?
Just a big thanks to you guys for having me, and thank you for the people in the past and present that have been supportive and believed in what I've done. And my lovely wife, Mackenzie, thank you for giving me the kick in the butt to do this. And I'm excited, and thanks.
All right. So, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Okay. So coming up this week, I've been out there in the garage shop making stuff. Got the farmers market this weekend, and then next week is an art show, and I have a piece in their silent auction, so hopefully that will do well, and just staying really busy. So
there you go.
I've been in the shop with squirrel moments. Got about 3 or 4 projects going at the same time, and never seem to finish any of them. So hopefully I'll get some of those done pretty soon and get some videos posted out. So
nice.
I've just got a new tool cabinet, so I'm going to be probably clearing up and filling that up with stuff that was in the drawers that I've just disassembled. So that's probably what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of days. It takes me a long time.
Me and Jackie, golly. Me and Jamie have an extra special show this week. There's gonna be an extra giveaway for Anita's out there. We're gonna have an extra giveaway, special stuff going on. So come see us on Saturday morning cartoons. Tony, you can even watch it when you're making stuff out in the basement.
There we go, baby.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Myself, I'm doing some organizational stuff out in the shop. We're getting one of my workbenches set up to where I can have a backdrop, so that's kind of going to be coming out. I have a lot of videos coming out on that. And other than that, we want to thank everybody for showing up today. Tony, from all of us, we wish you the best of luck in your endeavors, and we hope to see you back here probably after a while and see how you're doing. But
absolutely,
other than that, we will see y'all next week. And
with who?
We got, huh?
With who?
Easy Wood Tools. Easy Wood Tools.
We got Easy Wood Tools gracing us with their presence next week.
Nice.
So same time, same place, same beautiful faces, and we're out of here.